Okay, welcome to episode 12 of the Business of E-commerce LinkedIn Live series. And today I have Dave Petit from Kayo 3PL, and we're going to talk about tariffs. Obviously, tariffs have been in news for the past several weeks. Even this morning, there was an announcement that Amazon's going to show the tariff surcharges on each order, which I think Amazon's walking back as of like 5 minutes ago. So things are constantly in flux. So if you, in my mind, if you break this down, there is like the revenue side of the equation where like, do you increase the price? How do you communicate that to the customer? There's all of that. And then there's a cost side of the equation on how much does it cost you as a business owner in the US to actually pay these tariffs. So let's focus heavily on the cost side of the equation today. So Dave, so let's assume that okay, I'm a small e-commerce brand in the US, and I'm primarily selling to US based customers. And my model is that I'm getting good inventory from China, right, in bulk, and then storing it in my warehouse, and I'm shipping out. So it starts with like very basic question on what is the tariff percentage, and how do I even calculate it, and when is it due? So maybe let's say I'm buying something for $10, and that's what I'm paying to the Chinese supplier, right? And I'm selling it for $20, or let's say $25. So the $15 is my margin. So do I declare the tariff on the $10 cost? Do I declare it on the $25 price? So let's just start with that discussion because there is a lot of confusion around even that.
Sure, no problem. If you're sending small parcels into the United States, like DHL, Postal Service, and all that, you'll be paying the tariffs on the retail price or the price in which it was sold.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be audited by CBP based on your website or your Amazon store.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sending in bulk, like
Right.
pallets, containers, you'll be paying the tariffs on the manufacturing costs. Okay. And there's two ways that can be done out of China, DDU or DDP. So in one method, you, the receiver, are responsible for paying all of the tariffs at importation through your custom broker. The other option is the Chinese supplier will include that in either the piece price or the shipping costs, or a percentage of the shipping costs. There's a few different ways they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that works with them is they'll likely underdeclare the value entering America. So if you buy it for 10, they might declare it as 5. Okay. Just remember, if you're dealing with any of that kind of stuff, you need to have proof. And you as a receiver are responsible for any discrepancies, penalties, fines, and all that. Okay. So you do need to be careful when you do that. And by the way, they're also charging the tariffs on the shipping costs, so sea freight, container, or
Okay.
air costs as well. So, so basically, the average Chinese tariff right now is about 150 to 200%. There is no API endpoint. There is no database that you can go to type in your HS code and figure out what the rate is. You have to be a private investigator. So you have to go to a website called HTS, which is a US government website. You pull up your HS code. You find out the base tariff. Then you find out the 2018 China tariffs. And then you add 145%, which is the 20% fentanyl tariffs and the 125% Liberation Day tariffs. So you add all that together to know what your current tariff amount is into the US.
Okay.
So you're bulk importing at $10 a piece, let's just say, and a 200% tariff, you're looking at $20 in tariff, or a net new cost of $30 per item.
Okay, so in that example that you said, for that $10, if I do DDU, so duties are unpaid and I am responsible, I as a receiver is responsible for it, then I need to do all this math, go into the, look at the HS code, go to these websites and figure out, and then I am liable to paying. But whereas if I go the DDP route, the Chinese supplier is responsible for paying, right? So
Correct.
they'll take care of all that in theory. But I think the catch here is that what if they underdeclare and then they pay? Can the CBP come after me? Like what happens? How much am I still on the hook, even though the supplier is presumably calculating it correctly and paying it?
It's fast becoming a hot topic. I mean, this was happening before all this too. Now it's become, quote unquote, the solution to tariff problems. Yeah, the CBP has full authority to audit you and the shipper and the receiver for up to 10 years. And I've personally been involved in one of those on another business I owned. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but my supplier was. You can look at 4 to 5 times the tariff amount that you should have paid in penalties, interest, potential jail time, and potential banning of importation into America. The things I've been hearing a lot lately is if you declare something at 10 cents, CBP will go to Amazon and they'll go to your website and say, wait a minute, you're selling it for $150. You're declaring it for 10 cents. Something doesn't seem right. Okay.
Okay.
If you do get inspected, sometimes the Chinese suppliers just walk away or go missing. You as the receiver is still responsible for those goods, even though they're the shipper and they pay the duties up front.
Okay. So in theory, CBP first goes after the supplier because they are the ones who paid. But if they cannot get hold of them, then you're the second in line, right?
Yeah. Ultimately, you abandon the goods and it goes to liquidation.
Okay. So then is it fair to say that DDP is an extremely risky move because you just don't know, right? You cannot trust that party to pay the correct amount of duty. So why would I want to do DDP? It's kind of ruled in practice. It's ruled out for most people.
Yeah, and herein lies the problem. You can't go after a Chinese company for anything legally through any court system. So from their perspective, they're like, hey, it's over there, and that's it. It is risky. If you're going to do it, just make sure that the supplier is declaring it legally. I always advise my clients to do the other option. Let you and your customs broker make sure you're paying the right amount, because they've all, even up until this moment, they're also making some money off you because they'll say your tariff rate is 200% of $10, but they declare it as 10 cents. Well, they're only paying 200% on 10 cents. And that delta difference, they're profiting off of you as well. So I would avoid it entirely, even before all this.
Okay. Makes sense. So you talked about customs broker. So since these tariffs are like very complicated topic, and if I'm a small business owner and I don't fully understand how to calculate this, do you recommend that I just go to a customs broker and help them share all the HS codes, and they'll tell you the latest numbers and what date it changes and all of that?
Yes, I have a video on my YouTube channel on how to look up HS codes. You're more than welcome to view that. But yeah, working with a licensed customs broker is always your best bet. They'll ask you for the HS codes and/or a very detailed description of your goods, and they'll find your HS codes and they'll tell you exactly. Believe it or not, in this modern day, that's how it's done manually.
And in that scenario, I assume customs brokers are like registered entities, so there is a liability there, right? So if they told you, it's kind of like accountants. If they told you the wrong number, then there is at least some sharing, and it's a US-based business, so that's a more reliable approach than trusting an overseas company which can disappear.
Absolutely. To clear shipments into the USA, you have to be a licensed customs broker in the USA, and you have to have a license to be a broker yourself, and you have to be an American citizen. It's cool. Serious business for them.
Yeah, I linked your video into the when we post this. But here's another aspect of this problem, right? Which I think is the whole cash flow issue. So let's say I'm importing like $1 million worth of goods from China, and I'm about to receive that shipment. The moment I receive the shipment, I am liable to pay, if it's like 200% tariff. I need to immediately write a check of $2 million just as tariff going to the CBP, right? And that amount is due the moment I receive it, right? Obviously, this is a massive problem for small businesses because no one has that kind of cash flow sitting around.
Correct.
Right? So what are the solutions? And this is where I kind of want to talk about. I think I know you do some of this. So there was this idea of like bonded warehouses. There's like free trade zones in the US, and then your specific example, I think you operate in a Canadian free trade zone. So these are the 3 options that I know of. So maybe we can just go through them, and then I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on how a US-based small business can use any of these options.
Absolutely. Now, by no means am I an expert on US bonded and free trade warehouses. I mean, I can only tell you what I've read and observed and heard from other people.
Yeah.
Okay? And there is some major debate on this right now. If you look at the initial fentanyl executive order, it actually says Chinese goods are not really allowed in free trade zones in the U.S., but they're allowed into a bonded warehouse under what's called a privilege status.
Okay.
Again, this is up for great debate because they're following executive orders that don't mention that. So nobody really knows what the truth is, and there has not been any guidance from CBP yet. So basically, the way that works is you import into a U.S. bonded warehouse. That warehouse has to have a bond with CBP, and it's either coughed up personally or through an insurance company. Okay, and when the goods enter, the tariff is recorded, so you don't pay tariffs up front at all. Whenever you pull it out, I believe you pay the tariffs of when it went in.
Okay.
So if it went in at 200% and it was removed 3 months from now, if the tariff rate
you still have to pay it. Okay.
you have to pay 200%.
Okay, but if the tariffs are constantly going up, then it's a good idea because you're paying it like low cost and then
Exactly.
okay. But if it's the reverse direction, which probably is my bet is that that's exactly what's going to happen. This is not sustainable. It's going to come down. So it sounds like if I import the stuff into bonded warehouse and they record it at 200% and next month it goes down to like 30%, I'm screwed, right? I'm still liable for the 200%. Okay.
Right. And it's a complicated thing. You still need to have a customs broker and there are fees involved. I caution anybody out there looking for a U.S. bonded warehouse. Make sure they really are, okay? And make sure they're not just saying they are and they hope to. And, you know, it's a very serious thing and CBP takes it very seriously, okay? Now, there has been a massive amount of price gouging now in the U.S. for bonded warehouses. If you have one and you're legitimate, it's the golden age for you. But what has happened is they've jacked up the rates 4, 5, 10%. They've adding fees in. It almost becomes uneconomical for anyone to really use them. You know, unfortunately, that has happened. And the next statement I'll make, I believe this is a personal opinion. It's not based on anything that's out there. I truly think the Trump administration soon will crack down on these bonded warehouses in the U.S. for one simple reason. They want the tariff money up front. They don't want it 2 years from now. Because if you look at their bigger plans, they have plans for that money. Okay. So that's what I personally think. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think there will be a crackdown.
That makes sense. And FTZs are again a similar concept, right? In the US, you import it, you don't pay at that time, but when you actually pull it out of FTZ and ship it to a domestic US customer, that's when you pay the tariff.
From my understanding, and it's not. I don't think either one are really made for like individual items. Like you bring a container in, you take that container out. Okay. I don't think they're necessarily made or set up for the container goes in, but I want to take one item out for an e-commerce. Okay. So
I do remember reading something around like automotive manufacturers. I think a lot of them are getting into that model where like they are importing the components into FTZ and then they use it into the manufacturing process and they ship the car out. I think that really helps with the tariff calculations.
So for some, it might not be much of a help because you bring in your $1 million in one container, you're going to have to pull that container out and still pay that $2 million up front. So that leads me into our solution out of Canada. So it's very unique. It offers a different perspective to this problem. And it really could help people. Now, we are offering it as a free service. I'm not charging any extra for this for people. And the reason is that I want to help people because a lot of people are in trouble. My phone has been ringing off the hook for the last 3 weeks of people desperate. They don't want to close their business because they've spent their whole life on this. But they don't have the 200% tariff to pay. So the way it works out of Canada is this. In my Toronto, Ontario location, I'm a licensed free trade zone. It's actually called foreign trade zone in Canada, but I call it free trade zone just to keep it simple. It's a license you have to receive from the Canadian government. They don't give it to everybody. But essentially, this is the way it works. You're going to import your $1 million worth of goods to our Canada location, okay? And you're not going to pay any Canadian duties, and you're not going to pay any U.S. duties, upfront.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I have the ability to ship within the US as if I am in the US. So I can use USPS, FedEx, UPS, FTL, and LTL carriers as if I'm in the US. And we truck our packages over to New York and we inject them into the mail stream.
Okay.
So the way it works with us is that we will bill back the client the duties, the US duties, on a per order basis or when we ship it to the US.
Okay.
So it's domestically shipping within the US. I want to stress that. It's not shipping from a Canadian carrier to the US. It's shipping and originating out of New York. Okay?
Yeah.
So, for example, back to our example of a $10 item at 200% tariff, I will charge back on a one order item $20 to my client. That 20 I remit to the US government.
Okay. And that is due when your truck crosses the border. That's when you need to pay those $20 in tariffs, right? Okay.
Absolutely. So we clear the shipments over the border using a formal clearance process.
Okay.
And this does a few things for you. Number one, it saves you from this cash flow hell that we're all experiencing. Okay. You're deferring your US duty to a per sale basis. In other words, you've sold it. So you still have to raise your retail price. There's no getting around that. You still raise it, but that retail price now has the tariff part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the first major thing. The second major thing this does for a lot of people is it shields you from the tariff war. Okay. It's 200% today, but it might be 50% tomorrow. Right. So if you import today into the US at 200%, you're going to pay that $2 million. And what happens if it falls tomorrow to 50%? Now you have all this inventory at $3 million. So with our system, because you're only paying US tariffs at the point of shipment, we shield you from the tariff risk. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
If I ship an order today, it's 200%. Maybe tomorrow it's 50%. When I ship an order tomorrow, it will be 50%.
Okay. So in this example, this makes a lot of sense. So there is no duties are only paid as you ship the order to the customer, right? So you're collecting revenue and your duties are paid. So it kind of solves the cash flow problem. But if I'm a US based business and I'm importing through EU, and again, to clarify, if the goods are coming from China, tariffs are due based on the country of origin, right? So the fact that it's stored in Canada for a few days does not impact any calculation, right? So which is super clear. So, but am I the importer of record? Are you the importer of record? If I'm a business and if I work with you or like someone like you, who's ultimately liable for this, for paying the CBP?
So I am, because I'm actually importing it from myself to myself.
Okay.
So I will pay CBP that $20 through a bonded customs broker, and then I just bill that back to my client.
Okay. So you are actually owning the inventory in that regard, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So is that like a traditional 3PL relationship, or there is some nuance to it? Because
absolutely not. This is not a traditional thing. I think most 3PLs in Canada or Mexico won't take this on.
Okay.
We take it very seriously. So we do need to receive your products. We need to verify that they comply with all safety rules and regulations in the US. We take it all very seriously. And we have very advanced systems where you'll go in and define every single HS code for every product, what your declaration value is, where it came from. And we will ask for proof of invoices from your manufacturer. And we will ask you for proof of manufacturing information. So the US wants to make sure that the product is not made in forced labor camps and all that. So it is data intense. It does take a lot, but it's got a lot of benefit.
Okay, so it is it's not like a traditional 3PL model. It's a little bit like the drop shipping model in the sense that you are owning the inventory and then you are shipping it on behalf of me. So it's basically I'm just paying you I'm collecting money from the customer, I'm paying you, and then you're shipping it, and then you're responsible for it.
That is correct. Your US customers never get a brokerage fee, never get a tariff fee, never know anything. They get no fees at their door, and they never will.
Okay. Do you expect a lot of this to come up? So if this tariff war continues for a long time, are there going to be more of such operations in the Canadian foreign trade zone? Does Mexico have a similar concept? Like, should we expect lot of this model warehouses to operate in both sides of the border?
Yeah, so I know in Canada, like the Canada government doesn't just give these licenses out. I mean, you have to have a historical history with them, which we
Yeah.
did.
Hmm.
So if you're Johnny 3PL and you've never really dealt with CVS, they're not gonna approve you for this.
Okay.
I think a lot of 3PLs and warehouses won't go down this direction, especially the bigger ones. The bigger ones are just gonna say, go to my US locations and pay your tariffs up front, and that's it.
Okay.
Because there is the cash flow, there is the risk, if you want to call, of non-compliance products in packages and all that. I'm getting a lot of people who are asking me to say, especially out of China, they want to send me 10,000 individual parcels already packaged and then stick a label on it and ship it this way. And I say to them, I can't, because I don't know what's in that package.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
So
you need to. Yeah, you have liability issues
you
because
have
you're technically owning the inventory.
You have to send me the goods. I receive them in, and I pick them and pack them. I check to make sure they say made in China, that they're nothing illegal or counterfeit or whatever.
Okay.
So it is a huge task. We went down this direction starting September of 2024 because it was actually Joe Biden's administration who was going to ban Chinese goods from the de minimis rules.
Right.
So had the Democrats have won in November, the de minimis cancellation would have happened in April anyways. Not many people know that. So we were getting ready since then because 90% of what I shipped to the US was under de minimis and it's Chinese goods. So for us, it's extinction. So we've been working on it for months now to be ready for this.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I think we have kind of run out of time today, but this was super helpful information. And then we'll also upload this into our YouTube channel, and then I'll post that link that Dave was talking about, where he talks about how to even to calculate these tariffs. That'll be helpful. So before I go, just a plug for Ordoro. So we are an order management, inventory management platform for small businesses that are selling online through Shopify or Amazon or Walmart. So if you're interested in any of those aspects of your business, take a look at us. Thank you, Dave, again for being a guest on the show, and thanks to everyone for watching.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.